Good morning.
Good morning.
Alex Haynes here, and Tiff Linnell coming to you both from New York and Atlanta. And just a review of what's going on in America right now, what's happening, the protests that are happening in Minneapolis, and the feels from the Black community. What's happening? How are we responding? How should we be responding? And what we want to do, not much commentary, but a lot of facts first. So you know the facts, you know what's happening, you know how to prepare yourself. And I think, honestly, Tiff, my number one goal here is that people have information so that they know how to prepare themselves. I want them to know. I think people should know how to prepare themselves. They should know how things are being angled and targeted against them. And they should have the resources that they need to kind of be able to make a difference here. So you want to start off with obviously there's been 3 days of protests in Minneapolis, outrage over the death, and obviously I will never say that it's going to be a lack of justice that these officers haven't been arrested, because we know what happens when traditionally when officers are arrested in these situations. They're arrested, even if they are charged, they are not convicted, and the vigilante of the American police system reigns on. The killing of Black bodies continues. The brutalization of Black bodies continues. And so this outrage is not a surprise. So for the last 3 days, it's been just heating up in Minneapolis. Walk us through how that began.
So one, it began, so to speak, with the death of George Floyd, the untimely death of George Floyd. After that, the city of Minneapolis has just had enough. And there have been, as you said, a few nights of protest, a few nights of unrest. Late last night, the 3rd police precinct was set on fire. And I mean, it's a fire. No lives were lost. The mayor of Minneapolis, Mayor Jacob Frey, had already removed everyone and asked everyone to abandon the building. And his quote was, "Brick and mortar it doesn't hold weight to the significance of life." So there were threats on the police precinct ahead of time. So he was able to remove everyone from the building.
Well, I mean, so
done.
And a lot of people have been in the same place, right? If there is going to be looting, because there's a side of America that's either blind to the injustice, blind to the frustration, and they don't understand why there is looting happening. They don't understand why there has to be some other solution here. My question, and not to drag it out, but we saw that the looting started in smaller ways. There was still not a response. It expanded to a big box department store. There was still no response. People are wondering why these people are upset and burning down their neighborhoods. But there's still been no response. I offer this. Silence is usually perceived as agreement.
Right.
I don't know any other way to perceive your silence.
Right.
I've been attacked many times for saying racism in this country is a white people problem. There's nothing Black people can do to make racist white people stop killing us. So the only voice that matters in this fight right now is white voices. And it's apparent that Black voices don't mean anything, because no matter how we tell you, no matter traditionally what we've done, every time this happens, white people are the first, and some Black people buy into white supremacy and use the same narratives. Well, what were they doing? What could they have done differently? But we've seen just in this week only, beginning on a day that we were celebrating veterans, on Memorial Day, a white woman weaponizing the police against a Black man.
Right.
Again, questions even there. Well, what did he really have to say anything to her? Right. She was literally breaking the law.
She was breaking the law. And now, even her dog has been taken away from her. But it's I'm going to say the quote that we heard this earlier this morning from Angela Davis. It is not enough in a racist society. It is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. And I just think that is a very poignant quote. I mean, it's just not enough for you. First of all, I don't want to hear you say, well, I have a Black friend. If you don't know at this point that you shouldn't say that, I really have nothing else for you. Don't say that. But it's not enough for you to have a Black friend. It's not enough for you to just say, well, I'm not racist. It's not enough for you to just say, well, that's not enough.
I offer this. Black people are looking for white outrage. They're looking for white people to be outraged at violence against bodies, like literal violence against Black bodies. And it's hard to see that outrage manifest itself when the president of the United States uses inflammatory language and uses his platform to inflame people and to insinuate that now there are thugs. This is the word that's used by the president of the United States on official White House communication sources.
Right.
Calling them thugs because they want justice. When 30 days ago, we don't have any footage of 30 days ago, white people, if you've ever seen the way that police protect themselves and secure themselves in the presence of a Black crowd, it's much different than the way that they protect themselves and prepare themselves around a crowd of white people. So I asked the question last night, do we need to carry American flags? Is that, do we need to carry guns? Because I know if I am charging at a police officer with a gun, that's the end of my life.
Yeah, you're done.
30 days ago, white people were all over this country in protest with guns on state capitol steps.
I'm like at a Capitol building. Officers. Yeah. Meanwhile, we have an official media correspondent, not armed, not doing anything but his job, identified himself as media, showed credentials, arrested on live television, arrested for nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm gonna back up to Asshat's tweets. I don't understand why you keep using a platform that you are trying to imply that they are censoring you. They're not censoring you. They're simply stating that some of the things you say are not facts and trying to provide actual facts. Second, it is beyond me that we have someone in the White House who now is not only tweeting harmful language and verbiage and threats, because let's be clear, this was a threat against life, not only from his personal Twitter account, but now also using the official White House Twitter account to post these same threats. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either way, the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. Let's, one, thank you, Twitter, for at least flagging this. They have flagged this tweet.
And they will continue to.
And they will continue to flag all of his tweets. This is a threat to public life. He used the official White House Twitter account to also, as you mentioned, threaten the thugs who are causing unrest in the city of Minneapolis. I don't think we've had a lot of bad presidents in this country since its inception who have done terrible things. This one is just reckless.
Well, I have plenty of thoughts on him. I know people are like, I'm gonna let you go because I'm not. I want to show what he's doing, and why our response has to be different.
So, one, let's be clear: the National Guard I saw some footage earlier where the National Guard is in Minneapolis. They are standing behind the state patrol. They are on top of an armored truck. They are in armored gear, and they were clearing the streets near where the third district police precinct was. So the National Guard has already started to show up.
No, they're there and they're in full force. The Minneapolis State Police have been empowered, and inflammatory threats and tweets like this from the White House, where Donald Trump says these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. First, and this is from Black media, keep George Floyd's name out of your mouth.
Keep it out of your mouth.
He says he just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That's a threat on Black life, a continued threat on Black life. That's exactly what that is. It's a direct and disproportionate threat. Now, Trump spoke to Governor Tim Walz last night, unfolding this morning, and you're wondering why people are outraged. This right here, Omar Jimenez, he's a CNN reporter, has been for the last 8 years, is covering the protests in Minneapolis. Omar is out there. Josh Campbell, another CNN reporter, they are on the ground there. They were approached by Minneapolis State Police. Josh Campbell shows his CNN credentials, tells people, tells the state police he has the right to be there. The people have the right to see. The state police approach Omar. Omar does the same thing, flashes the credentials. The state police pause for a moment, come back within 30 seconds and tell him that he's under arrest. Now, at this point, there's no question that there is a difference in treatment between Black bodies and white bodies in this country. And if you don't see it, your eyes are closed.
And you're making a choice at this point. You're just
Omar flashes his credentials. The cameras are rolling. And similar to Amy Cooper on Monday, knowing that a camera was on her, as she called the police and acted hysterically to 911 and weaponized the police against Christian Cooper. In the same way, these state police saw these cameras rolling. This man had flashed his CNN badge. You see the footage now. He's flashing his badge. He's telling you exactly who he is. His camera crew is saying, we are from CNN. He's giving them, and this is his First Amendment right. Just as you have one to have free speech, free press. He's covered by the First Amendment in this footage. The police, after showing the credentials, they come back, arrest Omar. They arrest his crew, and the CNN cameras followed this entire. The cameras did not stop rolling. What you see right now, Omar Jimenez arrested by state police in Minneapolis. What we get as an answer, of course, they're scrambling right now because now there's footage of a white press, a member of the press who's white, who was questioned and left alone.
Right.
In the same moments, you see footage of a Black member of the press questioned and arrested. The purpose behind
not even questioned, barely questioned. Really, they just said, I'm following orders and arrest him. They arrest him. Then after Omar is arrested, they arrest the producer, Bill Kirkos. They then arrest the photojournalist, Lionel Mendez. All arrested. They've been released at this point, which we're grateful for. But the BS statement that the Minnesota State Patrol released, there's no excuse for this. There's absolutely no excuse for this. For what
we have it, and you saw it, so there's no reason for you to question what happened or how this happened.
It's on camera. It's literally on camera. I mean, as you said, correspondent Josh Campbell did the same exact thing. They both followed the same process, showing their credentials, telling them, I'm media, we have a right to be here. And really, Omar didn't even say that. You can hear him in the footage saying, we'll move to wherever you want. We were getting out of your way when you came in. The CNN team was there before the State Patrol even arrived on the scene. So by the time they arrived on the scene and they were lined up behind where they were shooting, Omar was saying, we were in the process of getting out of your way. We can move to wherever you want us to move. We're media, here are our credentials, and they still arrested him. And they still arrested the crew. And then the Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota saying, this is unacceptable and we're so sorry. You're only apologizing now because you realize they were live. They were recording live on national television, and your state patrol just arrested a person of color who happens to be in the media for no reason, no explanation.
Honestly, I think a lot of the scrambling, the governor has to apologize because this is, and he has to take full responsibility because this is his state. I think what the police departments aren't apologizing, and that's where people are looking for apologies. They want the police officers to apologize because they are the ones who essentially should be apologizing through all of this. And I'm like reading tweets and people are sending me text messages, and I saw this as soon as I woke up. The Minnesota State Police respond that in the course of clearing the streets and restoring order at Lake Street and Snelling Avenue, 4 people were arrested by state patrol troopers, including 3 members of a CNN crew. The 3 were released once they were confirmed to be members of the media. So if this is true, since you're going to tell a lie that this is what happened, if this part is indeed true, then what you're saying is that you believed the white member of the media when he flashed his credentials, but you didn't believe the black man when so you still have a race issue here.
Yep.
You still have a problem here. You have a problem, and there is a problem, and we have been saying there is a problem. And 2 points I want to cover here. I think that the constant Black people and I said this yesterday, Black people constantly seeing their bodies under attack is not healthy.
Right.
So if you want healthy, you fine, keep killing us. If you want healthy Black people around you, they need to stop seeing images of themselves dying.
Yep.
Because you can't turn on the TV, you can't go on social media without it. You cannot I can't look at my text messages without seeing it once again. Another Black
my timeline or any other social media
attack.
Yep.
So I think that part is unhealthy. I think second, we have literally been saying this, and I know for generations, and we've had movements in this country that have changed laws, and there has been slow movement, not a lot of progression.
Right.
So while and this is why some people still can't connect, because while Colin Kaepernick peacefully knelt, the president of the United States made that kneeling about a damn flag.
Right.
Which no one asked Black people how they feel about the American flag. We know that the national anthem is literally a song about slaves.
Literally. Which is why I never sang. I actually stopped singing that in
I think
elementary school, I think.
I just think that the president of the United States made this about a flag when we tried to do this and tried to bring some peaceful information and peaceful delivery for what was happening to us, and it was ignored. So the peaceful delivery was ignored.
Right. And let's be clear, just as a friendly reminder, Colin Kaepernick knelt as a sign of peaceful protest after having a conversation with a veteran. He had a conversation with a veteran, and a veteran who served in the military for the United States said kneeling is one of the most respectful ways that you can get your message across. So
that was lost in the sauce, and that's my point. So we knelt peacefully. Yep. We have complied peacefully. And as we saw in Minneapolis with George Floyd, the initial footage that comes out, he was peaceful, he complied, and he still died at the hands of these police officers. And at this point, there has still been no justice. And so I don't really know. You're not going to speak about it. And this is in me. The Black community is hurting.
Right.
So Black media, small, large, medium size, we all just need to be speaking as much as possible. And also taking breaks, because it is not healthy for you to see Black bodies brutalized all the time. It is not sustainable. It can't happen.
It's traumatic. And
You can call, I mean, and people, you know, don't understand that their desensitization to these issues happened because of racism. Maybe you don't want to call Donald Trump a racist, but it was very flagrant. His attacks on Colin Kaepernick were a distraction from his lack of policy and his lack of ability to lead. So let me throw a distraction over here and make this about a flag, when generally the Black diaspora does not give a damn about the American flag. And that's patriotic, because in this country, you can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Right.
It's just as patriotic to kneel, say the pledge. All of that is patriotism in the United States of America. So let's not look for some false narrative around patriotism. Now, when this happens, when something like this happens, because it was a CNN reporter, and for the last 3 years, the president of the United States doesn't agree with their reporting, factual or not, and he calls it fake, undoubtedly people will find a way to justify Omar's arrest. Well, it doesn't mean that it was about race. Okay.
There's no justification. You literally have it right in front of you. A white correspondent do the same thing Black correspondent did, and one was arrested and one was not. I mean, it's crystal clear. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And I just don't understand now that there is footage repeatedly of bodies being murdered, lynched modernly today. Us being arrested when white counterparts are not. Literally, his white counterpart was right there and was not arrested. So I just don't understand. We've got footage now to prove it. We've got stories. We've got witnesses. The teen who recorded George Floyd's death is traumatized. She has said she's traumatized. We are traumatized. And you mentioned something that I brought up another point for me. You know, the White House now with asshat in there is tweeting about thugs and unrest and everything. This is not just Black people in Minneapolis who are sick of it and burning these buildings down. It is a mix of races that is just sick of it and are in the city protesting. So even right before Omar was arrested, there is one person being arrested, and that's what they started to film before they walked up and started arresting the CNN camera crew. So for Minnesota State Patrol to say, oh, we were restoring order and 4 people were arrested in the midst of us restoring order and clearing the street was clear. There was one person being arrested, and then the
footage is clear.
The footage is very, very clear. I read an article this morning, which I'll post on my social media later, and we can post on all of our other pages, that talks about the history of the policing reforms that were supposed to be implemented in Minneapolis long before George Floyd's death. Some of the reforms were implemented, some of them were not, but there seems to be a history of policing issues in this city that are not being addressed and that the police are not being held accountable for. The officer who actually murdered George Floyd by putting his knee on his neck had 18 complaints lodged against him. Senator Amy Klobuchar declined to prosecute him after the first 10 complaints were lodged against him. So
in line with the same way that she declined attacks on Black bodies for a period of 10 years.
Right.
I think that should be noted. It should be remembered. She wants to be considered as a vice president for all people. You decline to prosecute truth quite often, Amy.
It makes me wonder if that officer had been prosecuted after the first 5 complaints, 10 complaints, 15 complaints, 16 complaints, whatever, would George Floyd be alive today? How many of our young and unarmed bodies would be protected if policing across this country could be reformed so that if you have so many complaints lodged against you, whether it be for racial integrity, whether it be for economic integrity, whether it be for gender integrity, whatever the complaints are for, by the time you get to 10 complaints, there's a clear pattern and issue. How do we get to the point where enough is enough? If you have that many complaints lodged against you, you don't need a badge. Because as much as we talk about officers, I personally know police officers that are hard workers, do an amazing job, and are just as hurt and disgusted by what's going on as I am. I commend those officers. But when you have 10 complaints lodged against you, you don't need a badge. You
Well,
don't
I mean,
deserve.
I think we've been saying that. So I think we can keep saying, I honestly just don't think there's a lot of power in Black voices right now. We're saying what you don't need, and you don't need to be doing this. And the same things happen. You know, we are still, whether you're young, whether you're 14 or you're 45, and you're Black walking around, or you're sleeping in your bed, and there's a no-knock warrant and 8 bullets are thrown into your body. This is what's happening in the country right now. So I think collectively, my encouragement to not just Black media, but and Black organizations, Black churches, Black schools, you really, really need to, if the white people, I'm telling you, this is not us against them. We have asked, and we are continuing to ask, and I'm using this platform to ask you to do something. I'm asking you to get off your ass and do something different. I'm asking you to open your mouth and do something different. I'm asking you to reach out. I'm asking you. That is what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to make this your issue. Your silence is complicit. It just means that you're complicit. You agree with, and if you don't agree with it, you should vocalize that. If you don't agree with it, you should stand up and say something about it. You should pull the Black person to the side and say, damn, I'm sorry. Well, it's not my problem. It is your problem, because it's a problem that only somebody with your skin color can solve. It's not anything. They're not going to listen to me. I'm a threat beginning at age 5. So that's it for me from this standpoint. I think that we'll continue to follow this through the day. We are reporting a lot of this we'll continue to report this in the Black News Alerts app. I'm at a loss. I was hurt this morning. I couldn't even really, because it's the images of me constantly seeing Black bodies under attack like this.
And let's be clear, this is not the first time this has happened in Minneapolis. And someone commented referring to David Smith, and I appreciate that comment because this is a pattern. So for those who are saying, you know, Minneapolis is just whatever, no. This is, again, a pattern of policing in Minneapolis and in Minnesota. Philando Castile was murdered. Because let's be clear, let's call a thing a thing. Philando Castile was murdered in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. David Smith, who the viewer mentioned, was killed in 2010. He died of asphyxiation, was held down in the same manner that George Floyd was held down in. Jamar Clark was, whatever, the city's police union called the Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. That's the head of the city's police union. There is a history.
It's terrorism when you want justice in this skin color.
Right.
And that shouldn't be, but that's the way that it is. And so
right.
I came this morning when we decided that, like, instead of just covering this with words, and the more of this coverage, if you don't have the Black News Alerts app, it's available in the App Store. Our coverage is there. We'll continue to cover this story, but it's now time for us to come together with some solutions. I am sick of keyboard activism because it's not getting us anywhere. Your outrage on Twitter, Black man, white man. Your Twitter outrage does nothing for the collective. We all have opinions. We know that. We should all share them. We get the loudest opinion from a Twitter platform when we should be getting some guidance and some morality, and we don't have that. So I think it's time for us to we have to find a way, and I'll be committed to that today. So I'm going to continue to follow this. The Omar piece of this, just him as a journalist, me as a journalist, it hurts.
This all hurts,
and it should not be. It should not be.
And I want leadership in our communities and in this country that if you don't do anything else, you should be uniting us, not tweeting that you will send in the National Guard so that when shooting starts. That is not
that is a threat on
that's
Black
a threat.
life.
That's not the messaging we need.
Tweeted from the White House.
That's not what we need.
Tweeted from the People's House.
Right.
A house that my taxes, because I have a whole another argument there, but I'll leave it there. I'm at a loss. That's it for me, Tiff. I don't know what else you got.
I just keep seeing Omar being arrested, and Mayor Jacob Frey has already commented that he is standing with the city. If you want to see his response to Asshat's comments about him being a weak leftist mayor, Google it.
All right.
I'm tired.
That's a wrap for us. As always, our reporting continues here at Urban Newsroom and Black News Alerts. Have a good day.